What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. It's 1 a.m. here. I was trying to go to bed and then I realized I haven't made a video this week, and so that is why I'm here. So welcome, come gather around the campfire and let's talk about why INFJs are considered highly sensitive. So INFJs are often described as the most sensitive type in the MBTI universe. And this is not sensitivity in the sense of weakness or low emotional, physical pain tolerance, but rather sensitive in terms of perception and awareness. So today I want to unpack why so many INFJs identify as an HSP, highly sensitive person, and how neuroscience and MBTI theory overlap with that. So we all know INFJs lead with introverted intuition. NI is constantly scanning for hidden patterns and deciphering meaning. It does not focus on raw data, but rather interpreting meaning from what is between the lines or beneath the surface. INFJs often describe as seeing things before the end. It's a sense of inevitability or foresight as NI begins to collapse these many inputs into just one distilled vision. Their auxiliary function, extroverted feeling, tunes them into the emotional and the social dynamics of their environment. So FE synthesizes the emotional tone of an individual group, and it will adjust or match the INFJ's behavior to match that of the dynamic. And they do this in order to maintain harmony, in order to maintain cohesion. So put those two things together and you get a type that is wired to process things at a very deep level. So it is known that 15 to 20% of the population have a genetic trait called sensory processing sensitivity. And this was a term that is relatively new. It was first identified by a woman by the name of Erin Elaine in the early 1990s. And so these people called HSP, highly sensitive people, don't just necessarily notice more, but they actually neurologically process information, these sensory and emotional inputs much deeper than the average person. And so researchers studying this cognitive sensitivity use what is called fMRI. This term stands for functional magnetic resonance imagery. And this is what the National Institute of Health, as well as, most medical hospitals use this as well. This is kind of, this is like a very common procedure essentially. So this is a brain scanning method that doesn't just show, pictures of the brain, but it actually shows in real time which parts of the brain are active based on the blood flow. So when these scans are performed on people that have HSP, these scans will show this heightened activity in what is called the insula cortex and mirror neuron systems. These are areas that are involved in emotional processing and empathy. So in neuroscience terms, sensory processing sensitivity comes down to heightened activation in the brain regions tied to emotional awareness, the insula, empathy, the mirror neuron system, and social cue processing. This is the temporal region and the fusiform gyrus. So what this means is that HSPs literally process data at a much deeper level, which obviously makes them prone to this tendency to overwhelm, and also their heightened empathy, this emotional sensitivity to things. And so INFJs heavily overlap with this profile, with this cognitive makeup, because their wiring is already primed for heightened awareness and emotional resonance. So in plain English, their brains literally light up when exposed to emotional or sensory input. And so for INFJs, this lines up almost perfectly. FE is constantly ruminating over these emotional simulations, and NI is running long-term pattern analysis. And their inferior SE, the extroverted feeling, so this is their last function, is hyper-reactive to sensory overwhelm. So bright lights, noise, chaotic environments will, of course, hit them much harder. So the result is you have an INFJ, at least most INFJs, live in a reality where it's like the volume on everything is turned all the way up. It's like they feel everything externally and internally. It's like there's a hyper awareness that they're unable to turn off. So the strengths for this are obvious, right? You have empathy. You understand people's emotions. You feel the same things that people are feeling in that moment, right? This makes you an excellent counselor, a great listener, a strong and supportive friend. You have advanced pattern recognition. You can anticipate outcomes before they even begin. And of course, you have the creativity aspect, which is transforming this chaos and using it as a creative outlet. You can use that input into art, philosophy, creative problem solving, things of that nature. And the disadvantages, well, they're very obvious. It's cognitive burnout. Your brain is processing things at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it seems like. And you have emotional burnout. People's stress can sometimes become your own. And then you have withdrawal. INFJs will often retreat, and not because they dislike people, but because their system requires a recovery from this sensory overload. So I think the biggest thing for INFJs to understand in this is that don't mistake your sensitivity as fragility. It's precision. It is a finely tuned radar that can anticipate happenings, that can experience and understand real world happenings in a much deeper way. I was studying being a pilot for a while, and one of the applications that pilots used, it's a flight planning software. And in this flight planning software, you can have layers of basically information that provides for the safety and the precision of the flight. So you have weather, you can look at cloud coverage, you can look at temperatures, you can look at wind speeds. And so for an INFJ, it's essentially like having all of these filters set to on. And so you can see everything, right? You have this vision, you can see everything, which is beautiful. But of course, it can be overwhelming. So I like to think of that analogy. So it's like the INFJ is calibrated for nuance in a world that operates off of blunt force and that which is only seen with the eyes. And so the question of why are so many INFJs highly sensitive? Well, it's because of their design, their NI recognition, the FE emotional attunement, the SE sensory vigilance. This all mirrors the neuroscience of sensitivity. And this is what Elaine Aron's research calls sensory processing sensitivity. And then you have MBTI, which calls this NI-FE consciousness with inferior SE. And so they're different topics of discussion, but they're the same truths essentially. So in conclusion here, we know that the INFJ is wired to absorb things more deeply than the average person. Doesn't make them necessarily more special or more gifted, right? I want to draw that distinction, but it is a real reality that you kind of have to just accept in a way. So the challenge for you is to stop drowning that and learning to channel that depth into clarity and creation. So as we wrap up here, guys, do you identify as an INFJ or an HSP? I would love to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments. If this resonates with you, let me know. And we'll see you guys in the next video.